This is the Collecting Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Purse, here with your co-host, Bill Hamill.
I'm somewhat more comfortable collecting real estate than I am collecting other stuff.
Really excited for today's episode with Austin Linney, real estate investor and coach. Austin, excited to hear your story. Tell us how you got into real estate.
Took about 8 years. No kidding. I rarely share this story, but I think anybody that's new to the business would really respect it. So, high school wasn't a thing for me. Like, I have a photographic memory. Like, no kidding. I did 5 podcasts yesterday, and I can tell you what we talked about, like after the 10 meetings I had. So like I can literally like recall stuff. And so like all through middle school, high school, up to like junior year, I didn't study at all and I made straight A's. I would just look at the piece of paper and then get an A, like memorize, right? And then you start getting into higher level stuff and it gets awkward. And so I was at a friend's house. His dad owned 3 businesses, and he tapped me on the shoulder in the backyard and said, "Hey, I've noticed you for a little while. You're a little different. I think you should read this book." And what that book was Rich Dad Poor Dad. And so the long story short is my dad is a dentist. My dad was a dentist for 45 years. And so you spend your whole childhood saying, how do I be better than my dad, who was the best dentist in Texas for 40 plus years and made, good money. And then he started talking crap about lawyers and doctors. And I was like, finally, I met somebody that talks shit on a high salary. And I was like, I totally like embraced it. I was like, oh my God, I can like buy this asset and I can do this. Right. And so like, that was like kind of imprinted on my mind and it changed my focus. And then I wound up going to college 3 times, dropped out all the times, got jumped in college, being in the wrong place at the right time. They broke every bone in the right side of my face. Like I was out of commission for like 6 months. So there was a lot of things in between that. And then I got addicted to methamphetamines and cocaine and was homeless briefly. Right. And so knowing what you want to do and doing what you want to do are two totally different things. You can know you have greatness. You can know that you can execute, but lying to yourself or distracting yourself with mediocre victimhood and all this stuff doesn't exist, right? And so what happened to me was I kept trying to buy real estate. And look, I've never shared this because I try not to think about it, but true story. And you'll love this because y'all are real estate guys. I want to say 15 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, in Pflugerville, Texas, which is 5 minutes from Austin, I had a 2-story, 2 living room, 5 bedroom house that I could have picked up for 115. That same house would probably be worth a million plus to this day. And we couldn't get FHA to like fix the roof. It was a whole thing. This went on for like months. And then I finally had to back out because we didn't have a place to live. But this happened to me 7 different times. I had 7 deals fall through, 3 the day before closing. And so I was like, to my faith, I was like, I'm never going to close a real estate deal. There's no chance I'm going to be able to do this. And then what happened was we had one bad deal go through. The agent calls me. So it fell through again. We got a rental house. The agent calls me. He's like, hey, man, your work history and your like finances are a little spotty. He goes, I think you should wait 2 years to buy a property. And pardon my French, I said, you can go fuck yourself. I'm about to go buy 3 and watch me. And so long story short, I went to work that night because I worked at a hotel, a fancy hotel restaurant. And this guy was there for his anniversary and he was pretty drunk on old fashions that I was serving him. And I was telling him the story and he was like heartbroken. Like he was like my age. He's like, dude, he's like, you just had a shitty agent and you had a shitty mortgage person. Let me find you a good one that works with like bartenders and service industry people. So he connects me the next day. I find this woman. She's like, oh, I can get you approved. Done. And I was like, so I got pre-approved and I was like, okay, all right, let's go. And so we looked, we couldn't find anything. And then we wound up buying this house sight unseen. And we didn't realize till after we bought it that the master bedroom didn't have a closet. So it was a converted duplex that turned into a house. And I was like, I don't care, because this was in San Antonio. So we had moved from Austin to San Antonio. And I literally looked at it, and my agent was like from the yuppie area. This was like not a great area. And he was from the yuppie area. And he was like, dude, you're buying the nicest house in the shittiest neighborhood. And I was like, look, dude, It's 7 blocks from the Riverwalk in San Antonio, and I have to believe that the area is changing. And so he said, fine, if you're willing to pay this, but I wouldn't pay more than that. So we wound up getting it under contract. The flipper wanted to get rid of it. Well, fast forward, and to speed up the story, that house went up $250,000 in 2.5 years. And so that kind of started the process. So then I bought the house across the street. And then I bought a house. By the way, I picked that one up for 50,000. So, and then I bought the house 6 blocks down, and then I turned all those into an Airbnb. And so I was running 3 Airbnbs, working 2 full-time jobs, traveling for one, cleaning the units at 3 a.m., cleaning the units at 10 o'clock at night when I got off of work because I thought I was saving money. And then when I met my mentor, he's like, how much money are you saving? So we like worked through all the numbers. And he's like, so just so you're clear, you cleaning the properties, you're making $2.10 an hour. And I almost threw up. That was like the shift for me. And then joining a mastermind and realizing that I was running into people that had 30, 100 Airbnbs really started what you see now, started the path of getting around higher individuals and really, full disclosure, I did 113 grand gross. I still had keys, no cameras, no automatic locks. I was still handing out the keys. Like, and these guys met me in the mastermind. They had 80, 100, 130 Airbnbs. And they were like, hey, dude, please stop that. And they gave me like 3 things to do. I did them. My entire business changed, hired a cleaner. And then we went out and started a company and wound up co-hosting 27 properties in 7 states across the country. And that was kind of my foray into like my real estate stuff that you see now. But that was like kind of the quickest I can work through that crazy story.
Wow, there is so much to unpack here. It's amazing. I hate to say it, but geez, since from that beginning, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and knowing that that is a complete mindset book,
Mm-hmm.
and then getting into some serious trials and tribulation with drugs and alcohol after reading that book, and seeing that you have a photographic memory. Boy, is there a book that would be super valuable to have right in the
Yeah.
top of your brain every day. Before we get into the real estate stuff, what happened there? I know it's kind of a loaded question, but understanding that Rich Dad Poor Dad and then falling into those bad areas of your life, I know it's a stupid question, but how could you
No.
let that happen?
Yeah, 100%. So at 17 years old, my parents came to me and they said, hey, either boarding school, military school, because you're not behaving, or Beaumont, Texas. And I was like, hey, I don't know where Beaumont is, but I pick it over military school. And so, long story short, that's where my parents were from, country town. So I move out there, and 3 months into moving out there, I went from 4,100 kids in my school to 100. So bit of a culture shock. Went from living across the street from Robert Ory, famous basketball player, to living in a 5-acre country house with everybody wearing camo at school. So it was a lot. There was a lot there. My parents said we're getting a divorce, and when they said that to me, the first thought was, I'm the reason that my parents are breaking up. I've never seen them fight. It's my fault. I ruined my family. I broke them up. And then I proceeded to embody victimhood mentality for the next 20 years of my life. And it was me, being super talented and feeling extremely smart, but not believing I was good enough. And then creating a space where the drugs and the people that did the drugs were kind of the environment. But I also, from 18 to 36, I was in the restaurant business, and if everybody's not familiar about the restaurant business, especially in those days, the alcohol and the drugs were pretty prevalent, and to be honest with you, still are to this day. So, you're finding a home, numbing your potential, which I think a lot of people do with many different ways. Netflix, addicted to work, just kind of thing, and just after a while, your subconscious mind just believes that this is what is on the menu. This is what's on, par. And so it took a really long time. It took a really long time, and it's been 4.5 years since I've been sober. I've lost 80 pounds, and in the last 2 years, we've changed everything, right? And it was a slow progression. Like, it's not all roses and cocktails, because literally during COVID, I was working private equity, and I got laid off from my private equity job and divorced from a 13-year marriage in the same week, and started a podcast the next week. So it was like literally like um, the podcast was me like being open and raw and telling my story of my life falling apart and rebuilding it, right? That's why I think it's kind of poignant that it's called Construct Your Life, because my friend said if I started it a year prior, it would have been called Construct Your Bullshit, because I was lying to myself. So, it's kind of been just a transparency of like realizing that most people I meet, a lot of clients, they'll hire me for mindset stuff, and like 3 weeks begin, and they're like, oh, by the way, I'm addicted to painkillers. And it's like it's really interesting how prevalent it is, and a lot of people are hiding that in a closet and tucked in away, and not talking about it.
Thank you for sharing that story, Austin. Extremely inspirational stuff there. There's so much good mindset topics that you brought up. I want to get into the real estate, the short term rentals, because I
Hmm.
really love that space,
Hmm.
but there's so much there with the mindset. You're talking about the escape that the average person has every day, and that keeps them from the dreams and aspirations that they know they have the potential for. And that is a serious problem that we see across the world. I also love how you never gave up. There were so many opportunities there where you could have thrown in the towel and just said, maybe my dreams aren't what I want anymore, or what I think I can do. And in order to get to where you are now, you told your story. That is so powerful and important. If you hadn't told your story working that restaurant job, you might not have closed on that first real estate deal. And people always ask me, how do you find real estate? How do you find investors?
Yeah,
Tell people what you're
that's a good.
looking for.
Yeah.
If you're going to
Dude,
your 9 to 5 job and then you're going home every day and watching Netflix, but you're wanting to buy real estate, but you're not telling anyone, what do you think is going to happen? And you
two things there. Two things there, Stephen. My favorite quote from Jim Rome in the world. Do you want to know what the top 1% does that others don't do? They ask. They ask. And I tell everybody what I do, not from a place of ego, but you never know who you're going to come in contact with. In true story, for me to separate myself from the addiction, this is exactly how I introduce myself at real estate events. I am not shitting. You can ask my friends. I would walk up to them and go, hey, my name's Austin Linney. I'm divorced. I was homeless, and I was a meth addict and an alcoholic. Nice to meet you. And what it does is it literally says, okay, I can share my story. It's okay. This guy gets it. There's no judgment here. And what people don't understand is the reason that your story owns you is because it's in the closet with the door locked and the lights on. The moment that you bring it out to fruition and shed some light on it, it refuses to own you anymore. And people aren't doing that. They're keeping it there. They're saying, I can't. And here's the truth of the matter. Each one of us, we hear this all the time, but I really want it to sink in. Each one of us are only beholden to the limitations that exist within our minds. And what I mean by that is when you make that money or you buy that real estate deal that's a little bit bigger than you've done before, your mind cannot go backwards. When you create that wealth or you create that thing or you buy that 60 unit or you buy that 100 unit, you're buying a one property, it doesn't exist anymore. And so the question is, if you, one of my favorite people in the entire world is Dan Sullivan. If you didn't know who Dan Sullivan is a coach for 45 years, entrepreneurs. He's the inspiration between Who Not How and Gap in the Game, which I think are two of the best books that exist on the planet. Okay. And what he says is everybody has it wrong. He does the 4 C's. So everybody's waiting around for confidence to happen, right? When I get the confidence, then I'm going to go do the thing. And what he's saying is commit to something that's greater than you. Once you commit, then you get the capacity to do it. Then you get the I forgot the third Z, but what I'm saying is basically what he's saying is you commit first, then you get the capacity, then you figure it out, and then you get the confidence. That's the difference. Guys, if I were to stop for 2 seconds and think about what's going on right now, I would probably freak myself out. Like, let me just walk you through a typical day. Okay. 2 podcasts. I'm running 9 businesses. We just got under contract on $10 million worth of real estate. Like, if I were to like stop and say, but like what I focus on is like, what's the thing I can do today, right now, right in front of me? Like these guys right here, you 2 guys, I have to show up for you and give you everything that exists on the planet for you, because this is a moment in time. And so, one of the quotes I heard that I love more than anything is you got to be married to the process and divorced from the results. I have no dude, I was in my 20s. I was the most emotionally irrational human being you've ever met in your life. If everything's going great, man, I'm smiling, music's birds are chirping. I call myself a front runner. Like when everything's great, don't mess with Austin. He's good, And the moment something goes south, oh, here we go again. This is oh, it's going to happen again, right? And so when you start focusing on just those one steps, those one little things that you can do today, like show up for yourself, put on your armor first. You create a space where I truly believe the only thing that matters in this world is consistency. If you are consistent in who you are and your daily habits, then you will destroy anything, and the market doesn't exist. Time doesn't exist. You can create whatever you want because the momentum just starts building on top of itself. And too many people are focused on what that property is going to do for them. Here's my biggest issue with real estate. This is really my biggest issue with real estate. Everybody in real estate is investing to get out of something. So you're investing to hit a home run. Like, this is going to change my life, instead of investing to enhance an already amazing life. Why are we always trying to hit the lotto with every deal? You know how you buy $100 million worth of real estate? You buy a lot. And so you don't
Absolutely.
win or lose on 1 or 2 deals, right? And so I just think we have to change our mindset around what we're doing in the real estate space.
So many good points there. Have you seen that clip going around of Kobe saying that he signed a contract with himself?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
That's a good one. He's saying, "I signed
Oh
a
my God.
contract with myself, and there's no going back on it. There's no excuses here." And it's a lot of what you're
Oh, that's so
explaining.
great. So
And
great.
saying that you have to build your way to confidence, that's like saying you can't go to the gym until you're strong. How does that make sense?
Yeah,
You're
yeah,
not gonna be strong
exactly.
your first day at the gym. And being married to the process is another good point. When I was in college, I wanted to do like a clothing company, but I wasn't in love with making clothing. I was picturing myself having the company, thinking that would
Hmm.
be a good way to have a career, not being in love with the process. And that's not how you get it done. I'm trying to close on a 24 unit right now. And before this, I haven't taken down anything more than a 2 unit on my own.
You'll
Granted,
never go back.
one of those
Yeah.
one of those closings was 8 because it was 4 2 units together, but this is very different. This is a large commercial asset that taking down alone is a different ballgame.
Well, Steven, as you exist today, is still Steven, no matter whether he closes a 24 unit or not. The only difference is that now you own a 24 unit. Like, here's what happened. Full disclosure. It's been a really long and bumpy road when you start entrepreneurship, when you burn the boats. There's months where, oh, I have money. There's months where I have no money, and blah blah blah. And so, long story short, true story. This is 100% true. I cannot be more clear about this story. A while back, I had my largest client, like my client that was paying me 40% of my monthly income, was a flake, was addicted. But I needed the money. It was a lot of money. Like, I was working on her, some stuff was working good, but like she just was not like committed. And I had a feeling come over me, and I said, she's gonna text me tomorrow and she's gonna be out. Like, she's not gonna pay me. And sure enough, she like didn't pay me the next day. And like, I was at the lowest point. And a mentor of mine said, look, here's the deal. You have 2 options. You can either run and hide, or you can do better. He said, figure it out. But I'm not talking to you till you decide which one it's going to be. And I went home, and I said, what if I just write a number on the whiteboard for the next 6 months of the year? And like, it's a number that just scares the effing crap out of me. Like, what if I do that? Like, what if I just say like, no more? Like I stopped playing small. And so I wrote a number and I said, wait, it's not big enough. And then I wrote another number and I was like, okay, that really scares me. Like that's like double, like almost 5 times more than what I've done in an entire year. And for me to hit that in 6 months would be a Herculean feat. Then I made an offer. Then I got a client. Then I started a group. I got another client. Then I got 3 more clients. And then I signed the biggest client of my life that was 10 times more than what she was paying me. And then I sold a property. And then I closed this deal and this deal and this deal. And I kept going and I kept going. I kept riding it, riding it, riding it, riding it. I get down to December 25th. I need one client to re-up for another 6 months, and I hit it. And he re-ups. And I hit it by 5,000 over. But wait. And I said, what would it look like if I did it again the next 6 months? If I doubled it again? Come on, dude, you can't do that. How are you going to do that? And you know what I did in the first 35 days of the year? I did half of that number in 35 days. So I doubled it again. And guess what? The goal for this time is another, like a triple. And guess what? Boom. First day I decided to do it. Like I get this huge equity in this company that's like half of that number already. And so the question is, have you asked the real estate gods, the universe gods? Have you really stated what it is that you want? Because when you place something out there, right, and you make it that what I call the make you sweat goal, you don't have a choice but to raise your identity to that number. And then you start acting incongruent with something like that. So if you were to say, okay, I close this 24 unit and next time I'm going to go for a 48. So that being said, like, is it going to take a long time to get to a 48? Yeah, probably so. But now we went from, I just had, 8 units to now we have almost 80 units. And then boom, there's no turning back, right? And so it's these small steps of this. It really is identity shifts, and then kind of stepping into them, which I call smashing through, new identities.
Absolutely. The identity shift is a big part of it. I think you mentioned that the market can't stop you when you're operating with that mentality. When you write down a goal and you commit to that goal, it doesn't matter if the S&P goes into a bear market or if crypto hits a low, because you're so committed to that goal that you're put your blinders on and you're not watching what's going on around you. You're not listening to that
hmm
group chat who's freaking out about Bitcoin prices. Does the market not play a role in how you invest because you're so focused on your outcome?
This is where I get really frustrated, right? We A lot of investors, especially if you're new to the game, you're acting like we're not investing. Like we act like it says like, hey, we just put money in. Here's the problem. If this is the thing I do with my clients, super important. Stephen, I'll use you as an example. Stephen, if I gave you 40 years, could you be a millionaire?
Give me 40 days.
Okay. But what I'm saying is, if you're already a millionaire in 40 years, then what's the rush? Where are we going? All of you are playing short-term games. I am playing long-term games. True story. This is a very true story. For a year and a half, I've coached a CEO. I took less every time because they were building a company. Less, 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 less than I could have by half. Less, 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 less. Then I come on and my consulting company consults the whole company. That goes on for 3 months. Less, 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 less. Well, the other day, I just got 15% of the company that probably backed me into, on the minimum, 5 years, 6 years from now, $200 million. Because I didn't need that short-term cash to make my emotions feel better about what I was getting. Now that's a calculated decision. That doesn't happen with everybody. But I had a feeling, right? And so when you're playing the long-term game, it opens up the world of more opportunities for you, right? Because what I've noticed with people, especially like employees and people that work for us or just in general, is what they're telling you that really frustrates them. When people shut down, when they stop operating, is when they feel like they have no opportunities, right? I'll use a perfect example that happened this morning. Former client, friend, he texts me. I haven't heard from him in a couple of months. He says, man, I'm about to start getting on Adderall because I'm ADD. And I'm like, no, you're not. It's not a thing. It's not a thing. You're allowing the therapist to speak into you that you have ADHD and you're using it as a crutch. Let me ask you a question. Were you not or not addicted to cocaine? Yes, I was. Okay. Well, guess what? Adderall is legal cocaine. So do you think that that is a good move for you to go back on it? And he goes, thank God I texted you because you are correct. And so how many times in our life do we live other people's injected values? How many times in life, Stephen, do your mom, your dad, your brother, your sister, I'm just using them as examples, say, you know what, don't get into real estate because it's risky. You know what's really risky? Sitting your ass on your couch for the rest of your life watching Netflix. That's really risky. Because how many of us die with the music inside of us? What is, I don't know who says the quote, but most men die at 25, but they're not buried till 71. And so when you're chasing these bigger dreams, sometimes you have to close your circle and you have to quiet the noise so you can just step into it. And then once you do it, here's a representation of how this works out in the real life. When I left the restaurant industry, I sold wine and I was a master bartender for 25 years. I had a million people DM me, people that I used to work with, that would text me and they would say, hey, you're a nobody. You're a drunk. You're never going to make it. I don't know why you're hosting a podcast. You're terrible. That's what they would send me. Like, I'm not joking. This is like for real. This went on for like years. Guess what happened in the last 6 months? Those same people said, hey man, I know you're really, really busy right now. I could really use some advice. And so they're going to question you. They're going to say you can't do it until they come around and they're asking for advice. And so at the end of the day, if you want to go buy a 24 unit, if you want to go buy a 300 unit, if you want to go buy 7 Airbnbs, if you want to go buy a hotel, like go do it. But surround yourself with people where you can borrow their confidence. Like if you want to partner up with me on an Airbnb deal, it's really easy because I've done it so many times that you can just borrow my confidence and say like, hey, we're going to do this thing. Austin's got it. He's got the checklist. He's got the things, right? But what I did in my 20s is I was this lone wolf. Like, I'm going to do it on my own. And like what I've done is just surrounded myself with amazing human beings that support my weaknesses, allow me to live up into my strengths and drive the needle forward, right? Because like I couldn't do all of this if I didn't have a great people with me. But it took a really long time to get that done, right? And unfortunately, it never changes. You don't really see a lot of people's true emotions and true behaviors until money's involved. Like we think that we're going to get to this magical place where people don't screw us over. I'm dealing with something right now that's like very uncomfortable. But like we're not going to let that stop us. We're just going to figure it out, ask them to leave, and then, it is what it is, right? And so, you know, Alex Hormozy says if you can literally walk around in this world and realize that everybody at the end of the day will pick their self-interest over you, then you can have some peace in your heart.
Wow, amazing, Austin. So much there with the mindset. Everyone just has a different perspective. When people are struggling and they're trying to break down that barrier, so many just quit and then go to that crutch when you just need to, as you referred to, and I've heard Tony Robbins say it, if you want to have a better life or if you want things to get better, you have to be better. It's up to you to grow and to be a
Correct.
better version of yourself if you want something greater. And I love that at 25 years old, as most people just have a W-2 job, which to me, and I'm sure you two will probably agree to a certain extent, a W-2 job is risky. What is that? You're now answering to a boss on a schedule, giving some type of retirement plan based on a 401k that's not going to give you enough money to retire. Talk about a risky venture there.
Mm-hmm.
And the one thing that I'm hearing you say throughout is basically consistent with that who, not how concept, building teams. And you going to that bar, you're having a drink, and the bartender refers you to a real estate agent, and you're able to buy that property. You see the path of progress and the potential with that, which worked out very, very well for you. But that short term rental you're doing manually, you go to the mastermind, they tell you, Austin, you're doing it wrong. Do it this way. Was that the light bulb on who, not how? And from there on in, that's how you were going to operate every business you got involved in?
Yeah, and I think at first I over delegated. I was like everybody do everything, and then I was like, oh wait, I got scammed out of some money here and there. Like people that just lied to me and said they weren't going to do it. And so it's been a long process of cultivating like what my strengths are and having people around me to support me. But I think ultimately understanding that really what it did for me was in that first Airbnb business, I was doing everything myself, like the Airbnb operation side, and I was getting like 120 messages a day. And like it was just a nightmare. Like I hated everything about it. And like I was lying to myself that I liked it, but it was like my shot to like leave my W-2. And I wound up walking away and losing $30,000. And it was like my official like business plan, like living inside of thing. And I think it served me for the rest of my life to like really define what it is that you want to do. And most of my life, and this is going to be a contrary kind of statement I say, and I'm not saying that they didn't give me a lot of what I have today, but at some point you have to graduate from your mentors. At some point you have to stop playing the small game. At some point you have to step into the spotlight in your own life. And that for me has been the last year. I'm sad to say that some of the mentors that I had got threatened by me. If I mean, that's basically all I can come up with, and started treating me bad. And obviously they're not the right mentors, but I learned a lot, right? And so, at the end of the day, you have to pick a choice and cultivate the life that you want to live, right? And ultimately, I live by this creed where like lifestyle and business is not something separate from each other. It can be the same exact thing. And so the point where I have this week, and I have 40 plus meetings, 50 plus meetings, everything on my schedule is a fuck yes. Everything but that took many years of cultivating, and kind of when your self-worth goes up, you're kind of saying, no, I'm not going to allow that in. I'm going to allow that in. And understanding that having the people around you that can do, like, I have a business partner who's amazing at like mind maps and systems and processes. Like he's very methodical. Like getting him like changed my entire life because it allowed the focus for me to do what I do best, which I call is a halo networking. So I actually came up with a term I just made up myself. Like those military guys that like jump from a plane so high that they wear the oxygen mask.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's how I network. So like I can go into a room full of 1,000 people and I can tell you what everybody does, what their unit count is, what their dreams and hopes are. And my business partner would rather stand in the corner and cry. Like nothing about that excites him. But like I am that person for him and he's that person for me. And so it allows me to be who I am at my core. And then backing those people up with project managers. Like at every turn within the business, we're taking less to have more, staff, to hire before we need it, so they can get used to. But what it's created, right? And I just talked about this yesterday with my team. We have a project manager, a COO for all of our companies that literally knows me so well that she can speak for me. Do you know how powerful that is? That she literally can be in a client meeting and go, what would Austin say in this moment? Well, Austin would pick impact over profits. Austin would choose the long-term game. Austin would always take less to make the client happy or to add value. Okay, so if she can do that for me, then how valuable is that to have a person that can speak to me? It's not enough to delegate tasks. Like the true wealth creation is to delegate decisions. And that's really hard to come by in people that are that loyal.
It's kind of how I feel with Bill after a year and a half. I feel like someone said something, and I know his cliche real estate answer that we say all the time that would answer the question presented. I like the delayed gratification that you're explaining because that's the heart of being a real estate investor. That's what we're in here for, having that delayed gratification. Also, when you said that most men die at 25, but they're buried later in life, I gave a presentation a couple weeks ago over at a college around here. It's coming from some real estate investors, and I asked them who owns real estate. No answer. Okay, what do you want to do with real estate? I want to own a portfolio in every city and be like a BlackRock. I love it. I love that ambition, but where does that go between 21 and 25? You ask a 26-year-old, they're like, maybe I can buy a house in the next 3 years. So in
Dude,
those 4 or 5 years, where does going from a multi-trillion-dollar business to owning one house, where does that mindset? How does that happen?
yeah.
It's being bogged
Yeah.
down by that W-2.
Dude,
So
I meet everybody, and the moment that you meet me, I make you double your goals. That's like guaranteed.
so
Like,
it's either double the goal or cut the time in half.
correct.
One or the
Right?
other.
Like let me ask you a question. So the way this is me, I structure my life this way. Like I don't do meetings on Thursdays and Fridays. I don't. It doesn't mean I don't work. It doesn't mean I don't respond to text. I refuse to have a standing meeting on Thursdays and Fridays. So why, Austin? Well, because I have a lifestyle. And so here's the rub, though. I have this call with you. I got up at 4 a.m. I worked out for 2 hours, and I'll go from 6 a.m. to 5 o'clock straight through. The last 3 days, same way, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But this works for me because it keeps me focused. I have coaching calls on Monday, podcast on Tuesday, Wednesday, meetings on Tuesday, Wednesday. And what I'm saying is, you're telling me that you don't have enough time, but yet I run 8 businesses and have 2 podcasts and 16 coaching clients, and we're buying real estate, and I do that in 3 days a week, and you can't do it in 5. Like, no, you're not focused. You're not clear on where you're headed. You're not locked in. You're wasting time. Like, they say it all the time. Show me your schedule. I'll show you everything that exists.
Show me your
Like,
screen time.
yeah, show me your screen time. Right? Because the question is what do you think that person's going to give you that you don't already have? Like I'm dead serious. Like, what do you think that person? Now, granted, I learned from Ed Milet. I learned from Dan Sullivan. I read. I watch videos. I do all that. But like that time is scheduled in. Like you're just you're taking a moment, and you're 7 hours have gone by, and what's actually got done. And moreover, this is the more important thing. And I talk about this with my clients all the time. Have you defined what a great week for you is? Like, have you literally sat down and say, this is a productive week? Like, I really got some stuff done. Have you done that for yourself on Monday morning or Sunday and said, like, this is, like, if I do these 3 things this week, I will consider it a kick-ass week. Like, we're not doing that. We're just slowly going through time and not, like, defining, like, what makes sense. I know exactly what my role is for all my companies. To be the motivator, to be the coach, to be the networker, to connect people. And I just live in that world. And then tasker serve to the VAs and the project managers, and they get it done. Hey, this is what we need to do this week. What's the thing? Now, here's what's changed my life. This is only in the last month. A lot of stuff lives up here, but what we've been doing is on Wednesday nights, like, so after work, the work week, we'll do a recap meeting, right? So like me and the other owners will do a recap meeting of all the clients, what we have to do for next week and everything. And what it does is it allows me to get the stuff out of my head onto paper, and then I can go into the weekend kind of like clear of mind, knowing that we're already set up for the next week. And so really, like, it's as simple as like setting the goals for the week. What are the tasks I need to get done? What are the rocks? Doing a recap meeting, and then doing it again the next week. Like, one of the things I heard is the greatest seminars I've ever listened to, John DeMartini. He said, you know what doesn't create wealth? Emotions. You know what creates wealth? Boredom. Like, it's these little things that we don't want to do because we're all dying and living on the sex appeal, the hot thing. Like, as I've gotten older, I've got away from the things that are flashy, and operating businesses that will never go away. Like, what's the standard thing that's never going away? You know, what's the greatest business in real estate on the planet? Title company. You always need it. Never going anywhere, but it's
Mm.
not sexy. Do you want to know if I could do it over again, what I would do? And I still might do it anyway. Everybody asks me, what would you do if you could get into Airbnb? Start over again. I'd start a cleaning company. Never, never going away.
That,
Cleaners,
that's
cleaners are making
business number 10.
cleaners are making $90. Cleaners are making $90 an hour. You telling me you can't find a little
Yeah.
profit margin in there? And then guess what? You're in the door, and you're meeting the owners. You know who I think is the greatest real estate investor that's never existed? Roofers. Partner up with the roofer. He knows who's selling, who's not. He's talking to the owners. He knows who's looking to get out. You know who's the most important person you need to talk to when you want to do large real estate? A lawyer, not another real estate agent. The lawyer's the guy that
Mm.
actually sees people doing deals. This is the stuff that they don't tell you. Why are you hanging out with other real estate investors? Hang out with the people that do the deals for the real estate investors, and you'll find the deals.
Bill, that sounds
Interesting
familiar with our
angle. I
personal
love
friends.
that. Yeah, getting back to that, I love that productive week, which I'm positive it's not a to-do list by any means. You
Mm-hmm.
have that fuck yeah list, which,
Yeah.
tell me if
Mm-hmm.
I'm wrong, but your fuck yeah list is all of the needle mover
Mm-hmm.
things to grow your business. The one big question I have, understanding that, when you network, you're a power networker, and you have
Mm-hmm.
that memory where you're able to meet somebody, know what their unit count is and details about them, and your partner's in the corner. And I can see that you're a super effective coach, and your partner's in the corner. Can your partner learn from you? Can you get your partner to work that room similarly? Or does he just not have that desire to get to that space?
I think I can get him to work it in the vein that gives him energy. Right? What I mean by that is, like, we just started a podcast to document the journey of these companies, and he's like 3 podcasts in, and he's like, I kind of like this. He's like, we're kind of hanging out, and he's kind of talking shit. Like, he's like, I kind of like it, man. And so, like, he does his damage in his own way, right? He's operating from a space of, like, what means to him. Here's the difference between me. I'll use me and my fiance as an example. My fiance is an Aquarius. She's a spiritual person, kind of in her own way. Like, she does like 3 calls in a day, and she's out for like a day. Like, she needs to recover. Like, I do 16 calls a day, and on the 16th call, I'm more fired up than I was on the first. Like, this feeds my soul. Like, this feeds my soul and my energy. So my suggestion to everybody is find things that give you energy and do more of that. I'll give you a perfect example. I actually heard it from Brandon Turner, and I would just like to go on record in saying, since Brandon Turner has left Bigger Pockets, his content is some of the best on the internet, because he is talking about mindset, and the dude is killing it. Okay, but what he said is, uh, think about losing weight, right? So is your goal to feel great, or is your goal to lose a number? Like, seriously. So when I started losing weight, I mentally wasn't strong enough to handle the fluctuates in the scale. I couldn't, like, literally up, down. It was like messing with my mood. I took the scale, I threw it in the dumpster, and I said, look, if your need is to feel great, then the number on the scale does not exist. It doesn't matter. So for a year and a half, I did not look at the scale. I just said, I'm a healthy person. I work out every day. The weather doesn't matter. And so I worked out in ice storms. I worked when the power was off. I worked when it was 100 degrees outside. I worked out when it was raining. It didn't matter. And fast forward a year and a half later, I lost 50 pounds. So the question is you have to create lifestyles. I am a real estate investor. I am always seeking opportunities that exist, that come to me. So when I'm on vacation in Costa Rica, I'm looking at property. I'm looking at hotels. When I'm in Oceanside, I'm looking at properties. Oh, it looks nice. I could do that. Oh, I'm at the RV park. I'm looking at that. It's not a if or then. It's a, no, this is my lifestyle. And so part of what I love doing is we're teaching everybody to run away from it. You need balance. You need all this stuff. No, what you're seeking is control of your schedule. There is no work-life balance, but you can exist in control of schedule. And when you do that, then you create space where you get to own your time. You're creating what you want to create, and then that's all you can do. There's nothing more that we're looking for. If they're selling you work-life balance, they're selling you a bill of goods. Because like, there's not going to be some event for me where I quit. Like, it might be different, it might be less, but I'm going to be an entrepreneur till I'm 90. So why are we all investing like we're going to quit 6 months from now? Why are we moving like we're going to quit 6 months from now? This is a game that you never win. It's always going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. There's always going to be another challenge. I think the actual issue that's affecting most people is their goals are too small and they're not challenged.
No, that's amazing. That's amazing. If anybody's seeing this on camera, if you just saw the look in Austin's eye and the physiology, the energy that he brings is absolutely amazing. I friggin' love that. I consider myself a high energy guy, but you certainly bring it. Austin, this is the Collecting Real Estate podcast. They say you have to have three of something to make a collection. So we'd
Okay.
like to wrap this episode up with three questions for you. Number one, in 5 words or so, what's the most important thing you've learned since you started collecting real estate?
That your first couple properties are nothing more than practice.
Awesome, awesome. Love that. Number two, what are your 1 to 2 year personal goals?
So we are going to, the goal is 100 million in 5 years. So if we're at 25 million in the next 2, then we'll be right on par.
What about outside of real estate? What do you like to do on Saturday, Sunday?
Oh, I am obsessed with travel. I think travel is so interesting to me. So, we'll ride bikes, hang out, go travel. We're typically driving. We love national parks and hikes. That's our thing. Like I'm obsessed with like being out in nature.
Awesome.
Awesome, awesome. Lastly, how can we and the listeners assist you, and how do we contact you?
What was that, Stephen?
How can we and the listeners help you, and how do we contact you?
Okay. Yeah. So you can go to austinlinney.com, Linney. Check out the podcast, message me, Instagram, austinlinney.com. But here's the one thing, a guy asked me this morning, the way that you can create space and the way that you can help me is to be the best version of yourself. Because when you're the best version of yourself, you collectively lift up the entire community. So we as a community can lift up and do things that we thought we couldn't do by you being the best version of yourself.
That's a great answer.
That's awesome. That's awesome. How do we contact you, Austin? I know that you have a fantastic podcast, the Construct Your Life podcast, and we just talked earlier this morning that you also incorporated the Brain Dump podcast within that same platform, which I've listened to every episode of that. But how do we get you by phone, email, or however you like to be contacted?
Yeah, so it's AJ Linney, Linney at gmail.com. Just shoot me a message, shoot me a DM on Instagram. You can check out the Construct Your Life podcast. We have about 470 plus episodes. Amazing content, amazing speakers. So yeah, I mean, any way you want to contact me through that, I'm available.
Great. We'll throw that all in the show notes as well. Austin, thank you for being on the show today.
You got it. Thanks, guys.